The front end of the field was exceedingly stable the whole Grand Prix through, with Leclerc making his first pit stop for slicks on lap 35, but a slow 5.2 second pit stop and outlap meant that when Sergio Perez pitted a lap later, he was comfortably ahead of his rival. Sainz also came into the box with Checo. Now, whilst Perez, Sainz and Leclerc pitted, Tsunoda smashed into the Tech Bro barriers at turn 10, another in a litany of incidents in this Grand Prix, which I will discuss later in the episode, bringing out the safety car. This is Yuki's second retirement in 3 races, and continues a brutal non-point scoring streak, which is now 11 races strong. During the safety car period, Sergio Perez, the leader of the Grand Prix, pulled within 10 car lengths of the safety car in an attempt to harry Bernd Maylander into speeding up. This was unsuccessful and was investigated after the Grand Prix, annoying almost all F1 fans, resulting in a 5-second time penalty, which did not ultimately affect the result, as Charles Leclerc had dropped to 7 seconds behind the Mexican before the checkered flag fell. This is his first podium since Belgium, and of course his best finish at Singapore. McLaren took their best result of the season with 4th and 5th, netting a cool 22 points on a day when neither Alpine finished, pushing the team to 4th in the championship with 129 points, as well as promoting Ricciardo from 14th to 11th in the standings, and putting Lando at 100 points on the season. Whilst Daniel Ricciardo progressed through the bottom half of the field, Lando Norris was engaged in a battle with the eventual 7th place Verstappen for the first half of the Grand Prix, after the reigning world champion went backwards at the jump, before he and his teammate Ricciardo pitted under the aforementioned Yuki Tsunoda safety car. Ricciardo was lifted into 5th thanks to mistakes from Hamilton and Verstappen, which I'll mention later, and the two of them cruised to the finish line, with Daniel required to protect his 20-lap-old softs, which he pitted for on lap 36. Max Verstappen ended up in a magical Aston Martin sandwich, with Lance Stroll securing his best finish of the season in 6th, elevating him 2 places to 15th in the standings. Sebastian Vettel also scored on his final trip to Marina Bay, having done so on all but one occasion in the past, moving him ahead of Magnussen and Gasly in the standings. This great haul of points from Aston Martin may end up being the lifeline of their season, and as the team now finds itself in 7th place in the Constructors, 3 points ahead of Haas and AlphaTauri, it could be a difference of tens of millions of dollars if they can maintain this position until Abu Dhabi. This phenomenal race for Aston began with Sebastian Vettel moving up 5 places on the opening lap to 8th, whilst Verstappen, who ended his 5-race victory streak with 7th, lost 4, getting very bogged down at the start. However, he did somewhat rectify the situation, passing Stroll, Magnussen and Tsunoda all on lap 3, before Vettel and Gasly also fell foul of the Dutchman. Vettel and Verstappen pitted for slicks on lap 35 and 36 respectively, Max trying to shape up a move on Lando Norris on lap 44, having got up to 5th in the pits, but he overshot it at turn 8, locking up and going off into the escape road. He had flat-spotted his relatively fresh slicks and was forced to pit for softs, falling to the rear of the field, but passing both Haas drivers as well as Bottas and Gasly once more in the laps preceding this incident. As the race drew to a close, Max edged closer to the battle between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel and took an opportune move on Lewis, who went wide before passing Vettel for 8th on the final lap of the race. So, no championship for Max this time around, but he only needs to be 112 points clear of Charles Leclerc after Suzuka in order to clinch it in Japan. This is also the first race since the British Grand Prix in which Max Verstappen has not been on the podium. Lewis Hamilton ended up in 9th place, having lost out after crashing heavily into the wall on lap 33, falling behind Norris but not Verstappen from 4th place, and being forced to pit a lap later as his front wing end plate was hanging off, leaving the Brit down in 9th come the checkered flag. His first race finish outside of the top 5 since Monaco. This disappointing result means that he remains in the no-man's land of 170 points, between the best of the rest at Norris at 100, and the tail end of the fight for P2 in the championship at Carlos Sainz with 202 points. Rounding out the top 10 was Pierre Gasly, who put his head firmly down in this great race of attrition, keeping himself out of trouble for his 3rd points finish in 4 races, and his 2nd in a row at Singapore. Valtteri Bottas just about missed out on points again, with a now 8-race drought nearly broken. Had it not been for Max Verstappen, who stormed back through the field after his lock-up incident, and the 2 Haas drivers followed. K-Mag ended the day in 12th after a poor start to the Grand Prix, in which he took damage to his front wing end plate and was given the black and orange flag on lap 7, and Schumacher was 1 place back, after making contact with George Russell, as the Brit attempted to make an overtake on him, both of them picking up punctures due to this. George ended up last of the finishers, the first time this season that he has seen the checkered flag outside the top 5. Rather than his 11th grid place spot, Mercedes decided to take an engine penalty, and George started from the pit lane, making contact with Bottas in the opening laps and locking up. Russell had already all but given up on his day by the 1/3 marker and decided to become a slick tyre guinea pig, struggling at first but then getting into his stride, prompting others to pit for slick tyres as well. He pitted again around lap 40, but his day was truly ruined by the aforementioned puncture at the hands of Mick Schumacher. He did, however, manage to snatch fastest lap of the race to take away every single point from the Ferrari and Red Bull outfits. Then, the extensive list of retirees, and this is a juicy one. Zhou Guanyu and Nicholas Latifi were the first to take early showers, as the Chinese driver was squeezed into the wall by the Canadian on lap 7, the 2 of them gaining punctures and suspension damage, putting a premature end to their races, and bringing out the safety car, which had finished up by lap 11. Then Fernando Alonso had some déjà vu from his McLaren days, as he suffered an engine failure on lap 21. There was, sadly, no deck chair to be found, bringing out the VSC. Next up was Alex Albon on lap 26, who went off the track at turn 8, losing his front wing and also retiring in the pit lane, bringing out the virtual safety car to clear away that debris. Then, disaster struck once more for Alpine, as Esteban Ocon also retired from the race in a cloud of smoke from yet another broken Renault engine. Finally, the previously mentioned Tsunoda incident. So, a double DNF for Alpine, from a place of such promise, their first of the season. This major slip-up has not only let McLaren catch right up to them in the championship, but it also calls into question the reliability of that Renault engine. Can it handle a full season of use? Apparently not. No one wants a repeat of 2018, where there were only 4 rounds out of 21 in which all Renault-powered cars finished. So now onto my driver of the race, and it is quite clearly Daniel Ricciardo, who took his best finish of the season with P5. Granted, he did have some luck benefiting off of both the Hamilton and Verstappen incidents, but this will have been a massive confidence boost and could possibly pad up his reputation prior to a move to a lesser team such as Haas. Now for my team of the race, and it's Aston Martin, who hauled home a behemoth amount of points. And they are now at 37 on the year, having passed both AlphaTauri and Haas, who are stuck at 34. As I said earlier, this move could be vital for Aston Martin's continued presence in the sport. And also, a side note, Seb managed to score 4 points on his final race, capping off a phenomenal relationship with this Grand Prix. Finally, for my struggle of the race, and it's George Russell. Absolutely nothing went right for the Mercedes driver on Sunday, as he had two major contacts with Valtteri Bottas and Mick Schumacher, and was also required to be the guinea pig for the slick tyres, he really had to push himself to keep it on the island. So a really unfortunate day for him. There's nothing much he could have done from the pit lane, and those incidents certainly did not help. Let's hope he can get back to Mr. Consistency and back into the top 5 next race weekend at Suzuka. Thank you for listening to F1 Every Week. Tune in next week for a review of the 2022 Japanese Grand Prix.